Thank you, everyone, for joining us on another wonderful, wonderful episode of the Trending Podcast. Today, I've got a special guest with me, somebody who I've known for a very long time. But not only have I known for a very long time, he's a guru in the tech world. He's known, he's a founder, he's done it all. But more importantly, he's also somebody who is very, very aware of our political landscape today. He participates. He's actively out there cheering for this side that he believes should lead this country to greatness. And because of that, I wanted to have him on this show. I wanted to get his viewpoints and get him to share his side as a rebuttal to my initial episode, which we launched last week. This is the part 2 of episode 1, Political Participation, the Trending Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the one and only Bill Manning. Bill.
Hey, buddy. How you doing, Chuck, man? It's always good to hang out with you, bud.
I am super stoked and excited to have you on this podcast. This is, in fact,
I'm excited too, man.
You're the first guest on this show, man.
I'm feeling pretty honored that you decided to bring me in on your first guest. I'm pretty excited. I'm stoked.
I am honored to have you. You are one of the best to ever do it in the tech world, in everything really, Bill. So I'm so humbled and privileged to have your presence today. We basically launched the podcast last week. In episode 1, we talked about political participation. One of the things we focused on there was we wanted to talk about how being in politics and participating in politics can affect a lot of things. And one of the examples that I gave was how the Republican side of the House, people who voted Republicans, even though they weren't getting any sort of big legislation done in Washington, D.C., people continue to vote for these elected officials, sending them back to D.C. time and time again, playing the long game. And what do we have now? We had someone like Mitch McConnell, Senator Mitch McConnell, who is now leading the Republican in Congress, in the Senate. And eventually, what was he able to do? He was able to put 3 Supreme Court justices on the court. And now we have 6.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that too as we move forward. And what that has done is shaped the political landscape of this country for decades now to go. And so one of the things I want to cover here today is to kind of get your viewpoints on what do you think about this phenomenon that we're seeing shaping the Supreme Court? 1, 2, what do you think about Mitch McConnell as a senator who has been leading Republican and allowing his side, his constituent, to consistently send him back to D.C. consistently because they are participating in politics. They're following the trends. They're not saying both sides is corrupt. They're participating, and they're changing stuff. Talk to us about your take on this, Bill. You have the show.
So I got two things on this. First of all, one of the things I want to discuss in the beginning is so I'll lay it out first. From my background and the way I was raised. I was raised by a single mother teacher growing up in New York, right? So I guess I'm very liberal, right? And I always joke around that, and I'm not joking, actually. I always state that I'm actually, when it comes down to it, I'm more independent in a way because, I am definitely more socially liberal and definitely financially conservative, right? I ride the fence, but at the same time, the conservatism doesn't go at the expense of taking care of my fellow man. Right? In my opinion, yes, governments are there to, in a way, help to enable people, but at the same time, we have to balance things. And part of that, actually, there's 2 things here. And number 1, I want to address this whole thing that we're talking about, right? So first, what I want to talk about is what I'm going to state is my feeling is where, as a Democrat, we're wrong. I'm going to say it right from the bat,
Okay.
right from the get-go, where we've done things wrong, actually. And the thing is that it's a perception issue. And this is where McConnell and his team, the GOP in general, actually did an amazing job. And like I said, I'm speaking about this very scientifically, right? I'm going to speak about this not with my emotions because it burns, it burns my ass.
Right.
Let's be honest here, right? But I'm going to talk about it very empirically. And what I mean by that is that where where the Democratic Party focuses more on the nation as a whole, right? We look at it as a series of laws that dictate across the nation. That's the reason why the Supreme Court loss, of Roe v. Wade, was so devastating, right? Because we looked at it as being like, we're Americans, we should go as an American faction, we should address as Americans. Where the Republicans excelled, and this is where they did a really amazing job, is the fact that they went grassroots. Right. So actually, if you want to go back, actually, here's the thing, is where the Democrats excelled in the 60s, late 50s and 60s with the civil rights movement
Hmm.
was the reason why is because they went in with that mentality of grassroots, go to the lowest levels, go to the cities, go to the towns, right? Start with the local governments, work your way up to get everything you need, right? And then we lost our way as Democrats. We did. We went for the more larger picture, where where the Republicans used to be on that. They used to be on the national stage. They treated it nationally. And that's the thing is that after the Clinton administration, and then when Bush, the second Bush, came into office,
Right.
is when things started to change.
Okay.
And what they did is they started to go with the grassroots, and they started to go to the low level stuff. And it was nothing was more apparent when McCain was picked as a presidential running, and they brought in Sarah Palin, right? Because she was a very local, pew pew. And we always make that
Right.
joke about it, but the thing is though is that she represented the low, the common person in a
Hmm.
way,
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it was more associative.
Hmm.
And what they did is also too is that when we start talking about the way this political landscape of this country is changing to more conservative, it seems,
Hmm.
but it's not. It's still very much a nation of compromise. Now, you don't let the extremists on each side. I'm just as damned as on the far left as the far right, right?
I
There's a
see.
whole middle segment of America.
Right.
But the thing is that what the Republicans were smart. They went to the lower courts and they packed the lower courts with their people. They went to the state courts. They packed the state courts with, basically going in and assigning these judges to these roles, right?
Hmm.
And then now it's the Supreme Court. By having the legal structure behind them was one key factor. The other key factor is that when they were campaigning and when they started going for this, they went for the cities, the towns, the grassroots.
Right.
And that's where they were able to, and they went to the churches. They went to the places where they could influence the most. Where as the Democrats retracted. Before they were really grassroots. They were right there, like
Hmm.
save the environment, and we're all right there. And
Right.
yeah, they protest and they do all these things. But the problem is that it's not at the local level. They're looking for the national stage
I see.
to address these issues. This is my opinion.
Right.
And when I
Right.
see this, and I'm like, that's the one thing where I think the Democratic Party has lost its way, is the fact that it's not going with the grassroots. It's not going to the local levels. It's not going even down to the assembly members. I mean, we're talking about assembly count, town councils and assemblies and state assemblies, right? These are areas where it's influential, and that's the reason why. And that's where they've really excelled, and that's the reason why it's changing the political landscape of this country. And that's one of the major things that I see happening. And the thing is that if you go by the very definition of politics,
Hmm.
right? And what this country represents and
Right.
what it represented, because it's broken now. It's broken.
Hmm.
Let's face it.
Hmm.
We all know it. We've all seen it. Ever since 2016, it was already on a sliding scale of since Palin, right? That actually changed the political landscape completely. And it became an us versus them instead of like what politics is. It's an area of compromise, right?
Right.
It's two opposing views trying to come together in some sort of common way where neither one is happy. Let's face it. It's not like
Right.
both sides are happy. No,
Right.
neither side is happy, but there's some sort of resolution. We don't have that anymore. I mean, actually, I will say I was very, very, that recent amendment thing that went into place where they had a bipartisan thing on gun, for gun reform. It was a very
Yes.
bipartisan thing.
That
That
was
was a very
awesome.
big shock.
Hmm.
But I think, but here's the thing is, though, it's not lasting. That was
Hmm.
knee-jerk reaction to a political situation, and nobody wanted to be the detractor to something so horrible, right? So I mean, it wasn't a true compromise.
Hmm.
And the problem is that we've lost that ability. We don't have that ability. The Democrats, one of them, we look at the GOP and oh my God, they're a bunch of freaking lunatics. They're all, guns and God and country and crazy and anti-immigrant and all this stuff. And then on the other side, the Democrats are, they look at the Democrats and they're like, oh, they want to let everybody in this country and they're evil and like they call them evil, like they're like demoncrats. I'm like, what the hell happened
Yeah.
there?
Right.
When did it become so nasty?
Interesting.
And that's the thing is that our country, the United States, is going to lose. We are going to lose. Unless, and worst comes, the worst would be civil war, but I think we have cooler heads on that side. I mean, we'll go to the brink. But the thing is that, when did it become so bad?
Hmm.
there's always been rivalry between the two parties,
Right.
of course. I mean, that's the reason why. And before that, that's the problem with two parties,
Yeah.
right? We need more.
Right.
Independents are a rare breed. Actually, most people would actually, if you really put down the definition of independent, most people in this country are independent. Like,
Right.
let me live my life, put in rules in place, let other people live their lives, and stop judging. Right. And the problem is that both sides are constantly embroiled. But like I said, in the years since 2016, it's just gotten out of control. Now, and look, I hate Trump. I'll
Right.
admit it, right? I mean, like I'm gonna, the day he goes away and does that, I'm throwing a big party. And the thing is that no, because the reason why is I feel like what happened is just that we had the fire, like the embers of discourse were there, and then he just came in and was like, let's go throw some gasoline on all this. And then what happens, right?
Right.
And the thing is that unfortunately, you look at these, you have these, you know, yeah, there's a landscape that's changing and it's changed. And can we ever come back from it? I don't think so.
Hmm.
I think the political landscape has changed forever.
Hmm.
Um, will it maybe eventually kind of start to equal? Hey, nature is all about natural equilibrium,
Right.
right?
Right.
Things over time just become equilibrium.
Right.
Will we get there? I'm hoping so.
Right.
And that's where my optimistic side. Chuck, you know me. I'm a
Yeah.
fairly optimistic
You
person
are.
when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I
Absolutely.
have hope. I mean,
Absolutely.
I love this country. I love the people of this country, but I'm also a global citizen too, right? Because you look at even grander scale things like global change, climate change, right? I mean, it's funny is now we call it climate change when it's global warming and all this stuff. And yeah, do I worry? Hell yeah. I have two children. I worry about them and their children and their children. By the time a lot of this happens, I'm going to be long dead. You know what I mean? Like when the shit really goes down, I'm going to be long dead. It's them who are going to have to deal with the consequences of my predecessors and myself or my inability to do something. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like I mean I've guilt around like why can't other people see what's going on? That we're going to leave our children in a worse place than we had it, and
Abs-
that disturbs me.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that was a long
No,
diatribe.
I love that. I love it. Listen, gentlemen, Bill, you're touching on some really, really, really serious issues that I think it's important for everyone to pay attention to. And I think we're going to dedicate a couple of more episodes to some of the conversation that you're talking about. I know there's some points that I want to tackle as we move forward later on in different episodes.
Sure.
But we're kind of focusing on political participation, right? You talked about how
Agree.
Democrats abandoned the idea of grassroots and they're more focused on the national stage.
No.
But at the end of the day, there's a saying that goes, you can take a horse to the river, you can force a horse to drink water. In this
Hmm.
case, the take is the Democrat. The horse is we, the people.
Hmm.
And the water is the voting. The problem
Yep.
is we have people. I've heard people say, "Hey, oh, it's great. I don't want to participate in politics. Both sides are corrupt. It doesn't matter anyways. They don't already know who's gonna win." Talk
Yeah.
to us more about what is the Democratic mindset. And for the record, I'm an independent. I don't. I voted for. I wouldn't say we're voted for, but I don't vote for one party. Just put it that way.
But that's that. See what you've done is actually that is the true political discourse. You achieve the true political discourse. Don't vote with the line, right? I mean, yes, I mean, I am more tendencies to vote towards my line,
Okay.
right? My party,
Right.
but at the same time, the thing is like I also like McCain,
Right.
right? He was a
Oh,
Republican,
Senator McCain, rest in peace.
but
Awesome, man.
but he was also, in this current political climate, he would be considered a hardcore liberal
Hmm.
because a liberal Republican. He'd be like the far left side of the Republican stage,
I see.
right? And here and that's that rhino thing that they always talk about, right? And I'm like,
Interesting.
that to me is the problem. Is that we've labeled, the thing is like people are like, oh, it's all about I don't want to compromise. Well, that's what this country was founded on. All right. John, I mean, think about John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. They are really, I mean, if you look at what this country is, I mean, where it started, the two of them, and the two of them couldn't stand each other.
Yes.
The two of them were on complete opposite sides of their viewpoints, but they respected each other and they worked together for a common good and they compromised. I mean, like, come on, they died on the same day. And when
True
when
facts.
Thomas Jefferson died, he didn't realize that John Adams had passed away like 6 hours. Last words out of his mouth, last dying words were, Adams survives, right? I mean, or Jefferson, or was the other way around? Shoot, I can't remember. Ah, but anyway, the thing was is that even in opposites, even in then, in defining what it means, there was compromise, right? There was concession.
Hmm.
Does nobody, and once again, like I said, nobody's 100% happy,
Right.
but something was accomplished. We're not accomplishing things because as soon as a Democrat brings something up, the Republicans vote it down. As soon as a Republican brings it up, the Democrat votes it down, right? I mean, the thing is, it's now just becoming black or white, and, and that's terrible. You know what I mean? The
But
thing is that,
yeah, but Bill, not to cut you off, one can argue that the Republicans are achieving more. They have three Supreme Court justices in the that were added
see,
in the last decade, and now they have six
yeah,
with a solid
yeah,
supermajority, and they were able to overturn Roe v. Wade. I mean, they're achieving something,
yeah.
Bill.
So the thing is that, like I said, I think the Democrats need to go back to what made them great initially, right? Which is, I think they need to, get back into the grassroots, the lower level, and really, I think actually the Roe v. Wade thing is actually a good catalyst for this because it's not going to stop here, right?
Mm.
Clarence Thomas, who has already stated, his feelings on where he wants things to go, right? He wants to get rid of, contraceptions, and he wants to get rid of, gay, basically gay rights. He wants to get rid of all these things. He doesn't think they should be covered, which, in my opinion, it's amazing that you know it is a civil rights issue. We're a country based on the rights of free, to pursue happiness,
Yes.
right, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And meanwhile, we're going to deny people like that. People who are gay, lesbian, trans,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I mean, what's funny is Clarence Thomas being a black man, right,
Mm-hmm.
and married to a white woman,
Mm-hmm.
his marriage was illegal
That's true.
up until about the 1970s,
That's a
right?
fact.
Interracial marriage was illegal
That's
until
a
the
fact.
civil rights movement.
That's a fact.
And the thing
My
is,
marriage to my
it's
wife would have been legal
amazing,
too.
right? Well, yeah, right. That's the
Right.
thing, and
Fact.
and that's the part that really blows my mind is the fact that a man whose marriage was considered illegal can judge other people who he would consider their marriage illegal, right? I mean, and we all know people who are gay and lesbian and are married and have kids and they're wonderful and happy, amazing people. And
Absolutely.
then to go ahead and then say, oh, we're going to remove their rights, right? Because and that's the part that really concerns me because I feel like we're taking a step backwards. We're supposed to be the guiding light for the world in terms of freedom. What it means. I mean, it says right on the Statue of Liberty, give me your tired, your poor, right? And basically, it's funny is that there's one of my favorite artists, musician wise, is a guy named Lou Reed.
Hmm.
And Lou Reed is one of the things that he actually stated in this one song called "The Dirty Boulevard," and he's like, "Give me the tired, you're poor, and I'll piss on them, right? And I'll club them to death." And he's like, "That's what the statue of bigotry says." Right, instead of the Statue of Liberty, says the Statue of Bigotry. He's a really amazing poet, right? I mean, a lot of his stuff is very much political, like very much in the vein of Dylan, all those guys leading up to it, right? And then he was part of the Velvet Underground and all this stuff going up. But like the idea here is, it's like he said this back in the '80s. This is back in the late '80s on his album New York, which is one of my favorite albums, and that it really, to me, the Democrats got to get back to the grassroots. They got to get back to the local level. They got to start, and the thing is, it's funny is that between removal of books, the don't say gay things and all this anti, trans and gay and lesbian and, contraception is next. I mean, like you can go down the list. This is what they've stated, what they want to start overturning.
Right.
And here's the thing too, is remember, Democrats global and Republicans believe that every state should decide what they can do, right? They're the state level.
Right.
And so, like I said, that's the thing they've adhered to. And yeah, there's a wake up call that needs to happen, right? And the thing is that like there's the big mafia joke. We got to take them to the mattresses, right? That means you got to take them down to like but right, where they sleep is
Right.
where you got to go and attack, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the thing.
I appreciate you saying that, Bill. We're up on time, but ladies and gentlemen, Bill Manning was able to cover a wide range of topics in this discussion today. One thing I'm proud of is I'm privileged to call you a friend, a mentor, uh, and quite frankly, I will even go out on a limb and say that you are a true legend, a true legend, and people need to take note. You've covered a lot of topics. I would definitely love to have you back on the podcast, and I think
I'd
your
love to
view,
too.
I appreciate it. I think your view is so comprehensive, and I think there's a lot of things we need to unpack. But I think we were able to unpack most of the important aspects today. One of the key items that I want everyone to take away is the Democrats are focused on the national level. They abandon the grassroots. Republicans focus on the grassroots. They were able to establish political participation with their constituents, which translates to them moving key policy differences and changing the landscape of this country by overturning Roe v. Wade. Bill, thank you so much for being on this show. I appreciate you. I love you. You are my dude.
Love you,
And
bud.
I can't wait to have you back on this podcast. Thank you.
Rock on, dude. Thank you so much. Be safe. Be wonderful. Well, everybody.